You don't have what it takes to run a business. Little brother. That's how it ended. No warning. No thank you. Just Danielle, my sister, standing across the desk. Arms crossed. Eyes cold. My name is Brandon Kessler. For 15 years, I was the quiet engine behind Skyreach Hotels, where families' boutiques shine. I wasn't looking for prestige. I made sure our 8 properties ran like clockwork, staff happy. Guests returning. Buildings maintained like living things. Danielle had been president for exactly 11 days when she fired me. The board agrees we need new energy, she said, as I calmly emptied the drawer I'd used since my early 30s. She didn't mention that the board consisted of herself, our father, and 2 of her freshly appointed business school friends. She'd always been the polished face of Skyreach, shaking hands, smiling for cameras, soaking up praise, while I negotiated vendor contracts, oversaw renovations, and sat with concierges after midnight to fix whatever was broken both in the building and sometimes in them. You'll get 6 months severance, she added, checking her watch. HR has the paperwork ready. I nodded, emotionless. I placed a few photos into the box, my team, my family, and finally, the framed picture of our grandfather standing proudly in front of the original Skyreach in Burlington. A photo Danielle had never thought to hang in her office. She tilted her head. Nothing to say. I looked at her perfect hair, her perfect suit, and smiled just enough to unsettle her. Good luck with the Westbrook renovation. Her jaw clenched. She hadn't expected that. Westbrook was the largest of our hotels, its renovation months behind schedule and bleeding money. A project she now had to handle without me. We'll manage just fine, she said, recovering. Our new consultant turned around resorts twice that size. I didn't respond. I just picked up my box, walked out of Skyreach headquarters, and didn't look back. 15 years. Gone in 15 minutes. But what Danielle didn't realize, what she never cared enough to learn, was that 5 years ago, Dad gave me a piece of advice I never forgot, Brandon. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. Hotels are our family business, but land is what lasts. I took that to heart. While Danielle collected titles, I quietly built something else. And now, as I drove away from the company I helped build, I wasn't angry. I was ready. You're listening to this story on Voices Stories. If you found your way here, whether from halfway across the world or just down the street, we'd love to know, where are you listening from and how does this story make you feel so far? Every comment, every shared thought becomes part of what keeps these stories alive. And if you'd like to stay close, to hear more stories like this, a simple follow, a quiet subscribe, is more than enough. Thanks for being here. Really. What Danielle didn't know, what she'd never bothered to ask, was that I'd seen this coming years ago. 5 years ago. Our father pulled me aside after a finance meeting. It was a quiet lunch at his favorite steakhouse. He sipped his black coffee and looked at me over his glasses. The hotel business, it runs in our blood. But land, Brandon, land is where the real power lives. Hotels can fail. Land doesn't vanish. I didn't just hear those words. I heard them. Deep. Back then, we just opened our Providence property. All capital was tied up. But while reviewing company leases, I noticed something most people would have missed. Our 3 most profitable hotels, Burlington, Portland, and Westbrook, sat on land we didn't own. We were leasing them. Long-term deals signed decades ago with elderly owners. Now, those owners had passed, and their heirs, they wanted to sell. It's a vulnerability, I told my father, sliding spreadsheets across the white linen tablecloth. If someone else buys that land, they could triple our rent overnight. We'd be trapped. He nodded, slow and thoughtful. I've been meaning to deal with that. But with Providence bleeding money, I'll buy them, I said, quietly, personally, then lease the land back to Skyreach. At the same rates. My father looked at me differently that day. Not just as the quiet son who kept the lights on, but as someone who understood the game beneath the surface. 3 months later, with financing from our longtime bank, I became the owner of the land under Skyreach's crown jewels. The company kept operating as usual. Skyreach paid rent, just like before. The only change, that rent now went to BK Holdings, my holding company. Dad had asked me once, "Does Danielle know?" I answered truthfully, "It's all in the company documents." "But she doesn't read those, unless she has to." He chuckled. "Your sister sees the forest. You see the roots." At the time, I wasn't trying to outmaneuver anyone. I just wanted to protect what we built. But now, as I drove away from the glass and steel tower we used to call headquarters, I realized maybe I'd done more than protect it. Maybe I'd built a future she couldn't see coming. I grew up watching my father build Skyreach hotels from the ground up. Not just the buildings, the business, the trust, the quiet pride that came from turning a failing roadside inn into something people returned to, year after year. While Danielle followed him to conferences, wore tiny suits, and practiced polite handshakes, I was in the boiler rooms, following the maintenance crew. I wanted to know how things worked, not just the numbers, but the pipes, the locks, the scent of clean sheets in the hallway. By 16, I could troubleshoot a busted HVAC system better than most of our staff. I could read linen contracts, calculate turnover margins, and haggle with vendors like I'd been doing it for decades. Dad used to say it gently, never unkindly. Your sister sees the big picture. You see the details that make it happen. And for a long time, that worked. Daniela dreamed big. And I made those dreams practical. She pitched visions to investors. I made sure the lights stayed on. A balance une vaine but effective. But balances like that rarely last. As our father aged, Danielle's ambition began to stretch its wings. She started hiring consultants, slick, smiling types, who brought binders full of graphs and strategic roadmaps. Words like national expansion, brand, synergy, and lifestyle partnerships started echoing in boardrooms that used to talk about towels and turnover. I kept asking myself, do we still remember what we're really selling here? A safe bed, a clean room, a night of rest for a tired traveler. Danielle wanted a brand empire. I wanted working elevators and satisfied guests. And somewhere along the way, the hallway between us, once narrow, became a wall. I could feel it every time she smiled too tightly in a meeting. Every time she pushed back on a maintenance request. Every time she reassigned a team member I'd mentored for years. I didn't resent her ambition. I resented how quickly it forgot the foundation it was built on. 5 years ago, the writing was already on the wall. I just knew how to read it. We were in the middle of a quarterly finance review when something on the spreadsheet caught my eye. 3 properties: Burlington, Portland, Westbrook brought in nearly half of our total profits. And all 3 sat on land we didn't own. The original lease agreements went back decades, signed with elderly owners, who were now long gone. Their children didn't care about legacy. They wanted liquidity. The kind that came from selling high-value land in prime locations. To most, that would have been a footnote. To me, it was a flashing red light. I brought it up over lunch with Dad, in the same booth he always chose at Rosie's Diner, his napkin still folded neatly on his lap, his fingers drumming on the salt shaker. If someone else buys that land, I said, they'll have the power. Not us. They could raise the lease to whatever they want, and we'd either pay it or walk away. Dad leaned back, eyes narrowing behind his glasses. You're not wrong, he murmured, but we've tied up all our funds in Providence. There's no cash left to play defense. What if I bought it? I asked. Personally, quietly. Then I lease it back to the company at the current rates. Not disruption. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied me as if seeing me clearly for the first time, not as his son, but as someone thinking 3 moves ahead. It would take a significant investment. Brandon, I've been saving. Why risk so much? Because I believe in what we built. and I'd rather own the ground under it than beg for permission to stay. The next day, he put me in touch with the bank, our family's bank. Within 3 months, I legally acquired the land beneath our 3 most profitable properties. Under a separate holding company, BK Holdings, Skyreach continued to operate the hotels without missing a beat. Nothing changed for the guests, the staff, or the spreadsheets. The only line that shifted was where the rent checks were going. And that changed everything. Dad asked me once, "Does Danielle know? It's all in the company records." I said, "But she never looks at the details. She looks for headlines." He gave a soft, knowing smile. "One day, she'll learn that the headlines fade, but foundations stay." That day was coming. She just didn't see it yet. The morning after I was fired, I still woke up at 5:30 a.m. Same as always. 15 years of habit doesn't break overnight. But this time, there were no overnight reports to read, no staff texts, no panicked voicemails. The silence was unfamiliar. I brewed coffee. Saturday out on my porch, overlooking Boston Harbor. The sky was soft gray, the kind of quiet that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. Container ships moved across the water with steady grace. Slow, powerful, deliberate. They never rushed, never shouted, just carried weight quietly where it needed to go. I admired that. Always had. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Miguel, our head of maintenance at the Westbrook property. Heard what happened. Their loss. Man. New consultant already making cuts. Rushing the reno. Not looking good. I typed back a simple thanks, but didn't offer advice. Not my job anymore. Another buzz. This one from my father. Breakfast at Rosie's. Ba Ling. We hadn't shared a meal there in years. The last time, we were still a team. Before the titles and the distance, I glanced at the clock. Still plenty of time. And for the first time in a long time, I had nowhere else to be. You're here, listening to this story on Voices Stories. And maybe, just maybe, you felt something in these quiet moments. 2. We'd love to know. Where are you listening from? What part of Brandon's journey has stayed with you so far? Leave a little note in the comments, just a line or two. We always read them. Always. And if you'd like to stay close, to hear where this story goes next, a quiet little subscribe is more than enough. No rush. We'll still be here. Because some stories are meant to be told all the way through. And the next part is just around the corner. When I walked into Rosie's that morning, he was already there. Same corner booth. Same black coffee. Steam rising. His hands rested flat on the table like he'd been waiting a while, but not impatiently. He didn't say hello. She told me, after the fact. No apology. No surprise. Just truth. Served like lukewarm coffee. I would have handled it differently. He added, "But you didn't stop it." I replied. He stirred his coffee slowly. "Danielle thinks Skyreach needs to evolve. Become more professional. Less family-style management. And you agree." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at me with something like regret or maybe recognition. "Your sister has a vision. The board finds it compelling." Our plates arrived without asking. Pancakes and black coffee for him. Eggs and toast for me. The waitress didn't even write it down. Some things never changed, but a lot of things had. He picked up his fork. Paused halfway. "The land," he said quietly. "Danielle doesn't fully understand the lease structure. It's in the corporate documents." I said, "You and I signed them together. She doesn't read the fine print." He gave me a tired look. "The renewal comes up soon. 3 months." I nodded. "I've already had my lawyer draft the new terms." He set his fork down. "What are you planning?" Brandon. The question had been coming for years. And finally, here it was. I took a breath. Looked out the window. Felt the weight of the moment settle. "Market rate leases." I said, Nothing more. Nothing less. He sat back. That'll raise our operating costs significantly. Yes, I said. It will. We finished the meal in silence. Outside, as we stepped onto the sidewalk, he put a hand on my shoulder. Your sister sees business as something to conquer. A pause. You've always seen it as something to build. And for once, I didn't feel proud. Or angry. Just tired. But I held on to his words anyway. Because foundation always matters. 2 weeks passed before Danielle reached out. She didn't call directly. Just left a voicemail crisp. Measured. Exactly like a memo written by someone else. Brandon. We need to discuss the transition. Some files appear to be missing. Please call me back. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just business. Just a box to check. I listened to it once, then deleted it. That afternoon, I met with an old college friend, someone who'd gone into commercial real estate development years ago. We talked over coffee and numbers. Not memories. He'd just closed a deal on a new property outside New Haven. I asked thoughtful questions. Took notes. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt clean, focused. I wasn't looking backward anymore. The next morning, Danielle showed up at my door. She didn't text, didn't call. Just rang the buzzer and walked in like it was still her right to. You're ignoring me, she said, brushing past me into the living room. I didn't answer. Just stayed standing while she dropped her designer purse on the couch, like she owned the air in the room. I need access to your documents, she said. Vendor files, maintenance logs, the Westbrook renovation plans, everything's still on the shared drive. I replied, sorted by property, just like always. Your system isn't intuitive, she said, crossing her arms, and your replacement needs clarity. I poured myself a coffee. Didn't offer her one. Your consultant, I said, has turned around bigger properties than Westbrook. I'm sure he can figure out a filing system. She blinked. Recognition flashed. I'd thrown her own words back at her. This isn't helpful. Brandon, the company, I don't work for the company anymore. That stopped her. She stood, smoothed her skirt. Fine. I'll have legal request the documents formally. Do what you need to do, I said, walking toward the door. She didn't follow, and that was the last time Danielle Kessler ever stepped foot in my home. A week later, a certified letter arrived. Stamped. Sealed. Cold. It was from Skyreach's legal department, formally requesting all files related to my former responsibilities contracts. Maintenance logs. Vendor agreements. Renovation reports. I didn't respond personally. I forwarded it to my attorney. He replied with a polite, professional list. Everything Danielle was asking for was already available on Skyreach's internal servers. Organized. Dated. Accessible. He also included a gentle reminder, my personal notes. Side records. And strategy memos were mine. Not company property. Not her business. While Danielle escalated, moved forward. I started receiving quiet phone calls. Former colleagues, longtime staff. The people I'd once led, trained, protected. The new consultant was streamlining. That meant cutting staff hours, delaying repairs, swapping out trusted vendors for cheaper ones. One housekeeper had been with us since we opened Portland. She was down to 3 shifts a week. I didn't offer solutions, didn't interfere, but something inside me tightened. These weren't just names on a roster. They were people I had worked beside for over a decade. Danielle called it efficiency. I called it forgetting what made Skyreach worth saving in the first place. Then came the letter. Not from Danielle, not from legal, but from our insurance provider. A formal request asking for clarification on recent ownership changes affecting 3 properties: Burlington, Portland, and Westbrook. Apparently, Danielle had attempted to update the company's property insurance. That's when the truth surfaced. Skyreach didn't own the land. I did. The email was short, polite, curious. Please confirm the current owner of the underlying land. As our records suggest a change in title from prior documentation. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my attorney with one line. They're about to realize everything. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice tight. Tired. Did you know? He asked. That your sister doesn't read legal filings. Yes. I said calmly. He sighed. She's called an emergency board meeting. Says, you've hidden critical information. Claims this land situation blindsided her. I kept my voice even. Every lease agreement is documented. Signed. Filed. Audited. She just never cared to look. You've been collecting rent for 5 years. Through BK Holdings. All recorded. All legal. He went quiet. I imagined him pinching the bridge of his nose like he always did when he couldn't find the words. The board meeting is tomorrow. He said. You should be there. I'm not on the board anymore. A long pause. Then softer, Brandon. It's still our family's business. After we hung up, I sat for a while, turning the old brass key from our first hotel in my hand. Danielle saw operations as paperwork. I saw them as promises. And now, every forgotten promise was coming back. The emails started coming fast after that. First from Skyreach's legal team, then the board, then quietly from vendors, staff, even former guests. Apparently, Danielle's new direction was leaving cracks everywhere. And the foundation, well, she never thought to check who it actually belonged to. By the time her consultant tried to update the insurance policies, he ran into a wall. The land was owned by BK Holdings. And once he searched the public record, it didn't take long to find out. BK stood for Brandon Kessler, her brother, the man she'd fired, the man she thought was gone. One morning, while sipping coffee at home, I received a call from Patricia, my attorney. Skyreach's lawyers want to talk lease renewals. How do you want to respond? I didn't hesitate. Send them the new terms. Market rate. No exceptions. She paused. That will eliminate their margin on all 3 properties. That's not my concern anymore. I said, it's just business. Truth was, I'd spent years absorbing every inch of this business, from pipes and payroll to people and property lines. I hadn't just prepared for this moment. I'd built it. And now, for the first time, they were seeing it. Not as a betrayal. As a blueprint they refused to read until it was too late. The insurance inquiry had opened a door, and I decided to walk through it. I drove to the Portland County Records Office, laptop in hand. Not to defend myself, not to prove anything, just to be sure, because deep down, I already knew. Within minutes, I pulled up the public property records, deed transfers, survey documents, lease agreements, all filed properly, all in my name, all legal, nothing unexpected, until I kept digging. In the next county over, I found it. A permit application filed 2 years ago under a different name, not Skyreach, but Kessler Vision LLC. The applicant, Danielle Kessler Madden. Her married name. The project, a commercial hotel development, oceanfront land, just a few miles outside Portland city limits. I froze, then kept going. Another permit, this one in Burlington. Same LLC, same development type, Sama market zone. And a third, in Westbrook. Each one, placed strategically near Skyreach's most successful properties. I stared at the screen, heart still, mind racing. Danielle hadn't just removed me from Skyreach. She hadn't just ignored the leases. She was building something else, a competing hotel chain, using our markets, our model, our family's foundation, and she'd been doing it for years, quietly, while I was still fixing boilers, still staying late to help night staff, still believing we were on the same side. I picked up the phone. Patricia, I need you to look into a company called Kessler Vision LLC. Quietly. Find everything you can. There was no emotion in my voice. No anger. Just the sharp, cold edge of clarity. 2 days later, the picture became complete. Patricia called with a file dozens of pages. Investor decks. Timelines. Pitch memos. Danielle had been building Kessler Vision behind the scenes for nearly 3 years. It wasn't just a concept. It was a fully formed plan funded, scoped, and backed by private investors. It even had a launch roadmap. She wasn't just leaving Skyreach behind. She was planning to gut it. And that's when the call came. Vincent Ross, board member, business school friend of Danielle's, the kind of man who never called without reason. I've seen the lease renewal terms, he said. No greeting, no small talk. And I've heard whispers about Kessler Vision. Not whispers, I replied. Proof. There was a pause on the line. Then paper shuffling. The board meeting is at 2 p.m. tomorrow, he said quietly. Danielle is proposing to sell the Burlington, Portland, and Westbrook hotels. She's what says the new lease terms make them financially unviable. And suddenly, it all clicked. She wanted Skyreach to sell the buildings at distressed prices, then have Kessler Vision buy them through proxy investors. She'd end up operating the hotels under her new brand, and I would become her landlord. A perfect flip. Silent. Strategic. Ruthless. Thank you for the heads up, I said. I didn't tell you anything. Vincent replied and hung up. I sat still for a long time. Not hurt. Not angry. Just done. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This was premeditated betrayal. If you're still here with us, listening to Brandon's story unfold on Voices Stories, thank you. Maybe you felt it too, that quiet shift. When something personal becomes something else entirely. How does this moment sit with you? We'd love to know. Just leave a few words below. Doesn't need to be long, just honest. And if you want to keep walking with us, to hear what comes next, a soft little subscribe is more than enough to stay close. Because this story, it's not done yet. And the next part is where everything begins to turn. I didn't go to the board meeting. Instead, I got on a flight to New York. Not to make a scene, not to gloat, but because I finally understood what this was. Not a battle, a reckoning. Julian Hayes, CEO of Commonwealth Hotels, greeted me with a measured smile. We'd crossed paths over the years, industry events, conferences, even the occasional drink. He'd once tried to recruit me. I said no. Loyalty, I told him. Now that loyalty felt misplaced. Interesting timing, Julian said. As we sat down in his corner office overlooking Central Park, I hear Skyreach might be divesting some assets. 3 properties, I said. They're best. He raised an eyebrow. And you happen to own the land beneath them. I do. I handed him a folder. Leases, financials, market analysis, renewal terms. My offer wasn't revenge. It was precision. If Skyreach sells, I'll remain landlord. You purchase the buildings. I offer Commonwealth long-term lease agreements fair, transparent, predictable. You run the hotels. I stay invisible. Julian leafed through the documents slowly. Outside the window, the city pulsed on. Why not just raise the rent, he asked. Force your sister to keep paying more, I didn't blink. Because she's building a competitor, and she wants Skyreach to collapse so she can buy its pieces cheap. He looked at me for a long time. That's bold, he said, and risky. So is letting something you love rot from the inside out. I took a breath. You've built a company that values people. I've built hotels that serve them. If we work together, we don't just take assets, we protect them. The staff stays. The mission stays. Only the name changes. Julian smiled. Thin, but real. Let's talk details. 2 days after my meeting with Julian, his legal team got to work. Clean, professional, fast. Meanwhile, I reached out not to lawyers, not to press, but to people. Miguel, Eva from front desk in Portland, Nina from events in Burlington. The people who'd stayed up late with me fixing broken plumbing or rewriting menus the night before a wedding. I didn't promise them promotions. I didn't offer bonuses. I offered one thing: stability. Commonwealth is preparing to acquire the buildings. If that happens, your jobs stay. No layoffs. No reshuffles. Just better leadership. And fewer cut corners. Every conversation was short, discreet, but I could hear it in their voices. The sighs. The quiet gratitude. The cautious hope. They didn't need grand gestures. They needed to know they weren't going to be abandoned. And I wasn't going to let that happen. That weekend, a niche hospitality blog picked up a rumor. Something about Skyreach in trouble. About Commonwealth circling. About internal shakeups and property pressure. Danielle's response was immediate. A company-wide email, bright, confident, carefully worded. Skyreach Hotels is not selling any properties. We remain financially strong and committed to long-term growth. She even added a quote from our father taken out of context. The kind of damage control that looked polished on the outside. But behind the scenes, the center was starting to slip. She found out. Danielle. Somehow, someone told her about my meeting with Julian. About Commonwealth's interest. About the buildings. About the leases. And she lost control of the story. The phone call came not from her, but from our father. His voice. Weary. She's furious. He said. Says you're undermining the company. I didn't respond. He waited. Then softly. The question, Brandon, what are you trying to accomplish here? Not an accusation. Not a defense. Just a quiet question from a man who'd watched his two children take opposite roads for too long. I sat with it. Let the silence stretch. Then said the truth. I'm protecting what I built. He didn't interrupt. Not the name. Not the legacy. The people. The ones who kept the lights on while she was on stage. I let out a breath. I didn't know I was holding. You taught me that. Dad. That buildings are nothing without the people in them. And I refuse to let them be sacrificed for someone else's ambition. No response. Just the low hum of the line. And then I hope you know what you're doing. I do. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. It had been 3 months since I walked out of Skyreach headquarters. Now I was back. Not with a badge. Not with a title. Just with documents. Facts. And a name they'd forgotten mattered: Brandon Kessler. The conference room hadn't changed. Same table. Same chairs. But the energy different. Danielle sat at the head. Arms tight across her chest. Her blazer perfect. Hair expression controlled. Our father sat beside her. Older than I'd ever seen him. The other board members were already there. Vincent nodded once when I walked in. Everyone else, unreadable. I took my seat at the far end. Didn't look at Danielle. I waited for her to speak first. She didn't disappoint. Let's be clear. She began. My brother is attempting a hostile takeover of the company our father built. I stayed calm. Incorrect. I'm exercising my legal rights as a property owner. Commonwealth made an offer. Skyreach is free to reject it. Vincent cleared his throat. The board was not fully informed of all relevant circumstances. I slid folders across the table, one to each person. Inside, permit applications, business plan summaries, ownership records, timeline receipts, everything Kessler Vision had filed, all under Danielle's name, all while she was president of Skyreach. These documents show, I said, that while running Skyreach, Danielle was developing a competing hotel brand, targeting our same markets. The room went completely still. My father's face lost all color. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the folder. Danielle's voice broke the silence. This is absurd. Kessler Vision is a consulting firm. I didn't flinch. With hotel permits filed in 3 Skyreach territories, with an investor prospectus citing our customer base and operational strategy, I turned to her. You used this company to position yourself to buy Skyreach assets once they were weak. You created the weakness. Danielle, not the leases. She stood. You've been planning this for years. Buying the land. Laying your trap. No, I said quietly. I bought the land to protect our family business. You're the one who decided I didn't belong in the family anymore. The vote that followed was unanimous. Commonwealth's offer was accepted. One abstention. Our father. Danielle left the room in silence. And just like that, Skyreach changed hands. The vote was done. Danielle was gone. The hotels would change hands. Commonwealth would take over. Skyreach would survive. In some form, but that's not what stayed with me. It was the abstention. My father, the man who built Skyreach from the ground up, didn't cast a vote. He sat through the entire meeting. Eyes lowered. Hands still. Said nothing when the truth came out. Didn't defend Danielle. Didn't protect me. Just stayed quiet. I wanted to ask why, but I didn't. Because part of me already knew. This wasn't just about hotels. It never was. It was about watching two children, one chasing the spotlight, to the other holding the walls, and realizing, too late, that you'd let them drift too far apart. As the board members filed out, Vincent approached me. We'll need interim leadership, he said. The board would like to offer it to you. I shook my head. I've made other plans. But you deserve. No, I said gently. What I deserve is a life that doesn't revolve around boardrooms. I walked out. No title. No press release. No need to look back. Just a quiet goodbye to something I once helped build and finally outgrew. 1 year later, I stood on the rooftop terrace of what used to be the Westbrook Hotel. Now it was called Harbor View. Same view. Same ocean breeze. New name. New rhythm. Julian joined me, handing over a quarterly report. Revenues up 17%. He said, "You were right about the local market potential." I smiled, not because of the number, but because the staff was still here. Miguel still ran maintenance. Eva was still managing the front desk. The hotel still felt like home, just without the cracks we used to patch overnight. As consulting director for Commonwealth's regional properties, I didn't have a corner office. Didn't need one. I spent most days walking sites, meeting suppliers, mentoring junior managers. It was quiet work, honest work, and I loved every minute of it. No more boardroom fights. No more titles to protect. No more proving anything to anyone. Just the quiet satisfaction of building something that worked not for shareholders, but for the people walking through the doors each day. You ever miss it? Julian asked. The spotlight. No, I said, without hesitation. I finally ended up right where I belong. Skyreach never recovered. Not completely. The company still operated 5 properties, but without Westbrook, Burlington, or Portland. Its backbone was gone. The new leadership tried to rebrand, talked about partnerships, hired 2 more consultants. None of it worked. Revenue fell. Occupancy dropped. Staff turnover skyrocketed. Skyreach, the company my father built, was now just a name, a tired echo of something that once stood for care, consistency, and community. As for Kessler Vision, it collapsed. Filed for bankruptcy protection last month. Turns out, hotel development isn't just branding and buzzwords. It's plumbing and payroll. It's knowing your supplier's first name and fixing a guest's broken keycard at midnight without calling for backup. Danielle had built her empire on presentations, and when the slides disappeared, there was nothing underneath. No foundation, no team, no second chance. I didn't celebrate. I didn't call her. Didn't gloat. Some lessons don't need witnesses. They just need time. The sun was setting over Casco Bay. I stood alone on the rooftop of Harborview, the hotel I once fought to save. Now, part of a new family. The building looked different, But it still stood on the same foundation. The land I'd bought. The quiet choice I'd made before anyone thought I'd need it. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out my grandfather's old hotel key, the one that opened our very first Skyreach property. Still worn. Still heavy. Still here. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Dinner tonight. Bringing the grandkids. I smiled. The kids didn't know the details. Didn't care who owned what. They just knew Uncle Brandon was fun and always made their grilled cheese just right. Danielle hadn't spoken to me since the board meeting. I didn't expect her to. But the kids were innocent, and I'd made sure they never felt caught in the storm. As I turned toward the stairs, I looked out at the water one last time. In the end, success was never about the corner office. It was about the foundation you chose to build on, and who still stood with you when the dust settled. I walked down, ready for dinner, ready for what came next. Sometimes we think survival means holding on. To titles, to names, to control. But maybe survival is knowing when to let go and still stand on something solid beneath your feet. I didn't win. Not really. I just stopped trying to prove anything. And in the quiet that followed, I found something better than victory, peace. So if you're listening to this, maybe you're standing in a storm of your own. Or maybe you're the one building the foundation. While someone else takes the credit, wherever you are, I hope you know that your part matters. Even if no one sees it yet, thank you for staying through the story. If this story made you pause, made you feel something you hadn't put into words yet, we'd love to hear from you. Just a comment. Or even a quiet. I'm here in the section below. Here at Voices Stories. We keep these stories alive by listening to yours. 2. If you'd like to stay close, a gentle subscribe is all it takes. No pressure. We'll be here, waiting for the next story to find you. Just like this one did.